Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It's Alicia here at Cosmic Gateway, and I'm coming to you with another incredible cosmic conversation. I am joined here with Ann Callan. She is the creator, or she'll talk a little bit later about her creation, but she is the creator of Indigo Essences. She has done some remarkable things working with adults and children, and she's got incredible wisdom. So, a little bit of a backstory. But first of all, welcome, Anne. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thanks, Alicia.
Anne came to me, reached out for a little bit of assistance and support last week for something. And I love the way the universe works because, in the process of us being able to connect, this conversation almost exploded in the best possible way around passion, around children, around the new children. And I got to connect and understand. So what seemingly was and reaching out for one thing, which I hope we did address, but it
Hmm.
turned into this spark of, I guess, a shared passion and mission around, sensitive souls, new children, children trying to come through. And you've been such a pioneer. I was so taken by what you share with me. You've been a pioneer in this work for decades. So I couldn't not invite you on to get you to share all your wisdom and stories and experiences. And hopefully, this can inspire some of the people that are watching who might have children, might be wanting to have children, or have an interest or shared same soul path as what we kind of share in commonality. So thank you so much for the work that you've done, and thank you for being here to speak on behalf of the souls. And yeah. I'm like, where do we start? I think we start from the top, right? Perhaps I'll hand the forum over to you, and perhaps if you can share a little bit about yourself and your
Hmm.
background and how this passion and how your work started, and a bit of a timeline from,
Sure.
yeah.
Thanks, Alicia. And it was a great session, by the way. So anybody out there, if you feel inclined,
Oh,
rock up.
thank you.
So, okay. So I went to train as a homeopath, and in the second year of the college, I went and spent a weekend in a friend's house. Um, they were they were working on a film in on location, and they rented this house, so it wasn't even their house. There was a book in the house, and I think it was called The Unborn Man. um, and I picked it up and read it cover to cover over that weekend, and it just made the hair stand up on the back of my neck, and I just knew that's what I'm here for. I'm here for these. The book talked about a change in consciousness, coming of the Aquarian age, all the stuff that, all the terminology that we're used to using, and said that this change would be catalyzed by the arrival of, and I'm going to cry my way through this as well.
Please. There won't be a drag between you and I
I
by the
have the
time we're finished.
tissue
Oh,
here.
good.
would would be I will cry actually. It's terrible. It's not terrible, but it does interfere with the flow. It would be catalyzed by the arrival of these Buddha-like beings, these very high vibrational children. And so that made perfect sense to me, of course. Um, and then the book went on to interview the parents of enlightened children, mostly from India. And the parents talked about how difficult it was and how they had to protect them and in some cases hide them as well.
Oh,
Um, and I just thought, wow, that's it. That's going to be my work. I'm going
mm,
to
mm.
focus on children.
Wow.
So I just determined that I was going to have a practice that specifically for children. And so I did. And it's funny, when you self-determine like that. In those days, this would have been the late 80s.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Starting out in sort of in 92. I opened my practice, and or 91, I think it was. Anyway, very few people focused on the treatment of children in those days. There were very few children's clinics, dedicated children's clinics, because they're actually a lot of work as a homeopath, because in the first 7 years of a child's life, they're developing their immune response. So they will be sick and they need to be sick. And, parents have to go through learning how to deal with fevers and all the rest of it.
Mm.
Um, so it's a concentrated work, and not many people, wanted to do it. But I was expecting to see all these baby Buddhas rock up, it's like, but they didn't. So what I saw children with all sorts of behavioral problems. In those days, it was very much the ADHD, ADD kind of diagnosis. Um, Autism was creeping up, but it wasn't, at the forefront at that point. But I saw some absolutely amazing children, absolutely extraordinary. Um, and I realized that there were lots of things I realized. I realized that they knew what they needed, for instance. Um, I remember seeing this young boy he was 9 years old, and he had a bedwetting problem.
Mhm.
Um, and his mum was a homeopath. So when the mother is a homeopath, the child has had every remedy under the sun.
Right.
So I thought, okay, this kid is different. There's
Mm.
something different about him. He came
Mm.
into the room, and he was just totally switched off. And he was switched off because he'd been to see so many people, and nothing had worked. And so I looked at him, and I just looked him in the eye, and I said, I think I know that you know what you need. And
Mm.
he just went, whoa. And he switched on, and he goes, right. I said, draw me a picture. I always got them to draw, because the children will tell you everything in a drawing, really. So he drew a plane at the top of the piece of paper. It was a plane, but there was a bomb coming out of it, and the bomb, and there was just absolute destruction on the ground. And I thought, whoa, I know what that is. That is the remedy plutonium, because the
Oh.
half life. Oh, what there was on the ground as well was a dinosaur, right? Because the half life of plutonium goes back to the time of the dinosaurs. So I looked at him and went,
Oh.
hmm. So then I showed him, just to see. I showed him these boxes of remedies, and he just did that, just tuned in to every single remedy. Nope, nope, nope. And then he went and he picked up plutonium 200C.
Oh, it was all through my body.
Yep.
Wow.
And he didn't bedwet from that night onwards. So they taught me a lot about, they know what they need. Um, and you've got to engage with them.
Mm.
It's like people say, well, how do you get them to turn the lights on? You just look at them. you know, it's something that it's very simple, but we don't, people very often in therapeutic situation, people don't do that. They don't
Yeah.
really engage with the spirit, the energy of the child. And I would always say to people, the more you know, the more they'll show you. Like if you know that there are extraordinary abilities, they will show you extraordinary abilities. They will only show you as much as they know you can handle. So that is a huge thing for people dealing with children in any capacity, really. That these ones with extraordinary gifts will protect you to a certain extent. They won't freak you out. They won't
Yeah.
show you. I mean, another lot of parents had a child. Now, I didn't see the child. Parents came to me to say that he could move things with his mind. And it was proving very difficult to parent him
Mm.
because, you know, And I said to them, well, wait till they can walk through walls and then you won't be able to keep them in a room at all.
Sorry to interject, Anne, but I'm so glad you brought that up because I've had these conversations with expectant mothers, and we'll probably get into the diamond children and the children yet to
Yeah.
come in. But it's kind of an in joke amongst us about like we have to be prepared in what is
Mm.
coming through. These children want to come through us, and I've always joked, I'm like, instead of having the terrible twos, it'll be the levitating twos and get down from the roof. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah,
None of the old control systems will work with these children.
absolutely not.
So, and that's the funny side of it. The unfunny side of it is that they are not able to deal with fear. They can't deal with
Yeah.
fear. They haven't got the wiring to deal with fear. So they are at the moment when I was working in practice, things were even worse than they are now in to an extent in terms of buried fear. That the old saying that children and animals express what we repress or suppress. So
Mm.
the poor sensitive child in the family, would very often express everything that the family was holding on to, and they become the black sheep, the child who was acting out, who was, who had the diagnosis. So one of the things, I'm going all over the place with this, but one of the things that I haven't even gone into the essences end of it yet, but one of the things I developed working with essences was a way that I call the bowl method. And that is a way of getting everybody in the family take to realize that this is a dynamic. This energy that we are living in is a dynamic.
Mm.
That child is not the problem. We have a problem. We have um, and working with essences, you can address this in the most marvelous way. You can just get a bowl of water, a bundle of essences, and get everybody in the house to put essences into the bowl, and that balances the whole dynamic.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
that's
amazing to see
marvelous.
what happens. It's like, you can just watch the tension just dissolves. And the super sensitive child loves that because then they realize that people are taking responsibility.
Thank
And
you.
that's, you see, they can't, I mean, there's so many reasons that they haven't come in yet, but one of they they can't deal with the fear, they can't deal with people who are not being authentic, because they can see that, um, and it's all far too much for them. Never mind the sort of the energetic soup that we have them want them to live in as well.
Mm, mm.
So anyhow, while I got practice up and running and I was working with kids and loving it. And somebody showed me how to make essences with
Oh, I
rock.
wondered how the transition happened. Yeah, tell us.
Yeah, it was, I was a very straight up homeopath, no time for crystals or any of that stuff.
Right. Okay.
Swinging crystals, love and light and all that. I didn't like it. Anyway.
So give us a time frame. When was this when you started to connect with the like when someone taught you how to make essences? When?
That was 89.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. No, not 89, 98. I'm very
Oh,
dyslexic with
okay.
numbers. Um, and that was after a very big shift. I spent 6 weeks lying in the sea in Bali. And that shift was similar to the one that I feel going on now, actually. It was a really extreme sort of
Okay.
energy thing. Anyhow, so when I came back from that, um, lying in the sea in Bali for 6 weeks, and which was a great way to do it. I so wish I was doing it that way this time, but anyway, anyhow. I love mineral essences in homeopathy. You know, some people are very attracted to plant essences or remedies, but for me, I love the minerals. So I think it was sort of natural that I'd make essences with rocks.
Mhm.
Um, and that's what I was shown to do. I was part of a group and we made essences um, with various substances, but I was really attracted to the rocks. And
Mm.
I didn't know what to do with the essences at the time. I was working, I was teaching classical homeopathy. I was a director of the Irish School of Homeopathy, one
Wow.
of several
Yeah.
directors. And so I just thought, classical homeopaths don't use anything except homeopathy. They're very purist about that.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I didn't know what to do with the essences. I just brought them into the practice room and I left them on a table and I would just observe the children using them.
Oh,
That's
okay.
how I learned. It was, again, the children would blem over. I didn't ever see a child who didn't want an essence. They all wanted essences. And they didn't just want one. That was the other thing, because in sort of old fashioned essence use, it's very normal for people to just have one essence at a time. But
Mhm.
these children would pick up, and it had to do with my essences, I guess. There, some imprint in them or whatever. But they would pick up. I've got bottles here, and they would just pick them up and hold them. You
Oh.
know, and sometimes they did a kind of play with them. One child or several children actually would make circles of essences and step into the middle of them. So it was like they were gridding themselves. Mm,
I'm loving these stories. This makes me so excited. Yeah, because
yeah,
it just makes sense to me.
yeah.
That's incredible.
So they had free reign. They chose the essences themselves. Um, And then I would say I didn't want them to take them orally. So I would say we had pots of cream, and I'd say to them, okay, how many drops of, so they would make up their own cream. And
Oh,
I decided that they should choose how many drops of each essence. And the first time I did that, this little kid said, "Oh, I'd like 100 of those, and I'd like 55 of that." And I was going, "Okay, how many drops up to 10 would you like?" But there was a ratio. You see, it was really interesting. They made a particular kind of a mix for themselves that very often would show you the key issue. The one they want most
mm.
drops from was the key issue mostly.
Oh,
And so
wow.
the process was handed back to them all the time. How many drops do you need? How do you want to use it? Where do you want to put it? And again, they were extraordinarily particular about where they'd
Mm.
want this. You know, one child, put dots around his wrist, another put them around his ankle. Some of them would just go like that, but some of them definitely put them on very specific points. Um, one child said he had sleep issues, and he said this helps me to close my gates at night.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And they also associated them with dragons, which was interesting. When, they called them dragon drops. Several children called them dragon something or other. Um,
That goes into realms where I was going to ask some questions. So, shall I just fire them off, or
yes.
I guess my interest in my work so all about the energetics and obviously the sensitivity of children. But did you see in your practice, or was it clear to you that these children having extrasensory abilities? Was there a lot of interference that happened? Was some of the bedwetting or night terrors
Yes.
because of being too open, having
Yeah.
not just family issues, but interdimensional kind
Yeah.
of, yeah, yeah.
Mm, absolutely. Yeah. Um, you see, we're just so ignorant about energy in the West. You know, I learned a lot about parenting. I'm not a parent myself. I came in to advocate for the children, so I never intended to have children myself. Um, but in my time in Bali, the Balinese are very acutely aware of energies of all sorts, good, bad, and indifferent. And they will never allow a child to sleep on their own. If you wanted to torture a child, you'd make them sleep on their own. That is absolutely never done. In fact, practically nobody sleeps on their own in the old Bali. Even my husband, like when my husband was Balinese, and when he'd go back home, if he left Ireland and went back to Bali, he would sleep with a parent, even at his age as an adult.
Oh, wow, that's
Um,
so fascinating. I didn't.
yeah, so they realised that we're very vulnerable at night, and leaving a child on their own. I mean, the worst possible thing you can do to a sensitive child is park them in a bed on their own, in a room by themselves. They're
Hmm.
completely vulnerable.
Yeah.
They don't
Yeah.
know how, they don't know how to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And
I'm so
it's awful. It's absolutely awful.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I see that a lot in my work when I'm,
Yeah.
working with the parents for children.
Mm,
And often it's not the obvious things, it's the energetic things that need attention and
yeah.
closing down. And where those types of energies come in that are meddling comes when we're vulnerable, even as
Yeah.
adults, as we're dropping off to sleep or waking up, or
Mm,
if we're not aware of our energetic hygiene or parameters that we're creating the space for. That's so, yeah, for children, they definitely need that protection and having, yeah, I totally agree with that sort of Balinese way of life. Yeah, it just
yeah.
makes
Yeah.
perfect sense. And I'm just going to disclaim, if you can hear like coughing and hacking in the background, it's Parky. He's very active this evening. I think he must be excited for this chat. But anyway, we'll continue.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so
Well, as we know, dogs are incredibly protective, and they help a lot of the children actually stay on the planet.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, every animal that I've had, or at least in the last couple of decade and a half,
Mm.
it's I had this incident, not an incident, an experience with him. He was telling me recently that he wants to be a service dog. So I have sorry, disclaimer that I have a telepathic connection with all my animals. They talk to me, right?
Yeah.
So he's telling me that he wants to be a service dog. And I was like, I'm looking at him, I'm like, I'm not going to go through all that red tape to get you a credit. I was like, can I just get you a jacket? Like, and then I realized it's a felony here. I was like, oh, but he kept saying it. He kept saying it. And then recently there's been a couple of, yes, I know he's very excited about this conversation. A couple of incidences where there's been a really disruptive energy that's rippled through to someone who's been with me or to me, or someone that's close to me, and he literally stabilizes the field. Like, he's incredibly, that they're so talented and gifted. And he loves the fact that I'm talking about him right now. But back to you. Have you ever used your essences on? Do you work with animals, or do your clients apply
Yes.
them to their animals? I know we're going a bit off topic, but
Oh,
while we're
yes,
here,
absolutely. Um, After I'd done the sort of that work in the clinic with observing the children for a number, it was about 2 years, I suppose, just observing how, what they did with the essences and so on. I thought I'd like to make a commercial range that so children could go into a shop and find something that they needed. So I worked with my nephews, who were they were 9 and 10 or so at the time, and we made a set of, I call them combinations, and it was like a first aid kit for feelings. So there was an essence called Champion for when you feel bothered by bullies, and there was Shine for when you're afraid to be the star you really are. And the kids kids came up with, because I said to them, what would you need? You know, if you had a little kit for yourself, what would you want to have in it? And the one for bullying was the first one, because the different sensitive kids are the ones who get picked on um, most. So yeah, so we came up with 12 essences in this kit, the combinations. And those essences are the ones that are used, have been used by various animal rescue places, to
Oh,
circle back to the question about animals.
yeah.
Um, there's one called No Fear. There's one called Settle, which really helps to just calm them down. Um, what else? The Works. That's a kind of, it's a rescue, but it's an existential rescue. So it's really good for for animals that have been in. I mean, the things we do to animals. Oh my God,
Mm.
animals that have been in kill shelters and that kind of thing. It's just like, oh my God, you just don't even want to go there.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah. So in other words, yes, we do.
Yeah.
Um,
So can we, sorry, I sort of cut you off a little bit there, but you were talking about the linear progression of sort of moving out of, your clinic and making the essence. How did it
mm,
then become like the success that, like, was it just working with the
well,
kids?
it was really
Or,
funny. You know the way you get a fork in the road presented to you.
yeah,
Uh,
yes, I do. hmm hmm
and there's no ifs and buts. It's like you go one way or you go the other. Um, and what happened was that the college that I was teaching in and a director of was having this we had an annual meeting to plan the next year, curriculum, teachers, and so on and so on. And it was to happen on the 5th of May, 1999. And on that same day, an essence, the essences, a rock would take my attention. And when it did, I would find out, is there an essence to be made? And if there is there a particular date it wants to come in on? So um, 551999 was the day for the hematite essence.
Wow.
And it was also the day for the college. It was a college away meeting. It wasn't like I could even pop into town and back out again. It was like away. So that was my fork in the road. It's like, okay, so what are you going to do? Are you going to make essences or are you going to go to the meeting? And I chose the essences.
Wow.
Probably not a wise decision in some ways, but yeah, it was there you go, what are you going to do? Um,
Wow.
so yeah, I decided, okay, I'm going to make essences, and it was we had a very difficult time um, in um, it was really, again, you and I chatted a little bit about waves of interference that have come in the
Mm.
um, in the early 2000s. There was a real push to get essences out there. There were commercially, like
Mhm.
in places where you could go and buy them rather than going to a therapist. So
Yeah.
there were several ranges. There was the batch flowers, the
Yes.
Australian bush flowers, which are
I was
still very popular.
I was raised on that. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah, the Alaskan essences, and then the indigos came in after. My essences were called Indigo Essences. So they were the four that went into shops over here and in the UK. Um, and then things happened, a whole load of things happened. There was like a cascade of things that happened in the essence business that sort of closed a lot of things down. The financial crash in 2008 was one of them, because people suddenly stopped buying in whole food shops the way they had. There were various things that happened with essence distribution companies went out of business, and it was a very difficult time financially. So, and energetically.
Mm.
I was attacked on mainstream um, daytime, the biggest talk show in Ireland, did a whole hour taking me down. And so a lot of shops lost confidence in the essences after that. And so I just realized I had to pull back from focusing on the children
Mm.
at that point, at that sort of time. So I just, we kept going with the essences, and they um, also realized, I mean, the adult population has got to do the work, inner child work, in order to be sensitive enough to the needs of children. Because people who've been through, the terrible traumas that we encounter here on the earth are closed down, sensitivity wise. You couldn't survive otherwise if you stayed completely open. So you have to be able to open that sensitivity to put yourself in the shoes of a child coming in with that level of sensitivity. And energetically, I mean, as you know, Alicia, I'm very keen on feng shui, on the energy of places. Um, and I see children put in the most extraordinary. I mentioned to you, the story of this child who wouldn't sleep, couldn't, nothing seemed to be working. And eventually I said, look, can I just come out and see the child's bedroom? And when I went into his bedroom, the Wi-Fi router was right up against his bed, you know, and you just go, right, okay, fine, and then we put them into schools that are just the most dreadful energy. One child said to me, a lot of Irish schools, and might be better in Australia, but have
Probably
fluorescent
not.
strips. They're lit with fluorescent strips. And one child said to me he could feel arrows hitting the top of his head when he was sitting there. He could feel it. And so people give out about children, oh, they won't sit down, they won't behave. Well, my goodness, they're so uncomfortable energetically that all they want to do is get outside. Um, there's a condition called PDA, which is pathological demand avoidance. Um, and one child that I worked remotely with, he was in the UK when I was over here, um, and he had such a bad, but with pathological demand avoidance, it's like having a really badly wired house. And you don't know if you plug in the kettle and the hairdryer at the same time, the whole house might fuse. So the child he doesn't know what he can take. They don't know what they can take energetically without a total blowout. And so they are avoidant. They just won't, they don't want to do, they will only do things that they're choosing to do in their own time,
Mm.
because otherwise something terrible can happen to them. And they'd just blow. And this child would just blow, and he'd run straight across the road. He'd just lose it,
Mm. Mm.
absolutely lose it, because he'd know, and it wasn't his choice. So he had very good parents. After he was kicked out of several schools, because they'll usually turn to, they will medicate themselves as well if they, to try and feel a bit better. So his parents sent him to a school called Nature Kids, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
absolutely, it was run by this woman who completely got the new energy, the new kids.
Yeah.
And he was to live outside in a teepee. He
Mm.
didn't, when they lie with their back, spine on the ground, it resets the electrical system.
Yeah.
We don't go camping like that anymore, hardly
Right.
ever.
Yeah.
It used to be an annual outing for a lot of families. Now we go on airplanes to places. It's crazy. Anyhow, so this was his treatment, if you like, was to live outside in his teepee. She did food sensitivity on him, and he had indigo essences.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Cool.
there was no pressure put on him whatsoever to go
Mm.
into the classroom. to, and this is the way she worked with these very sensitive children, as when they came to her school, they could choose to sit up a tree all day until they were regulated, if that's what they needed. They completely, and then they got to trust that they weren't going to be pushed into a situation that they couldn't handle. So this kid, I remember her, she rang me, the teacher, Felicity, her name was, she rang me one day and she said, he did it, he's got his A levels. And she was absolutely, just like, wow, because he had previously not been able to do anything. Not that I think getting A levels is amazing, let's say.
Wow.
It is, he's programmed by, but what happened was he turned his life around from, being incapable of doing anything to being able to settle down. And he went on to set up a group for kids with PDA himself. So it's like, and I've come across that a few times, that these sort of older ones. There was another girl who was brought to me for depression. Her parents said she was depressed, and I took her case and I was going, I just don't see it. I don't see that she's depressed. And I just looked at her and I said, do you ever see things? And she went, oh my God, how did you know?
Yeah.
And it was a good guess. but she had people walking through her room the entire time. She tried to tell her mother, and her mother said, only mad people see things.
Oh, it breaks my heart.
So she knew she wasn't mad. So what she did was just close down.
Yeah.
She wouldn't go out. She didn't. And when I said, oh my God, there are people who would pay money to learn how to do that.
Right. Right.
An amazing skill. But again, there's nobody there to teach. And this is what we also need is, what we need now are people who are going to be able to teach the kids how to work with their energy. And this girl, she went on to start a group for sensitive kids as well, because when they've been through that and been through it in isolation, then they will do what they can to help the other ones coming. But there's so many things that we need to, the adults need to do their inner child work so that they're not projecting stuff onto the kids, because the kids can't take it. They need to become sensitive to the environment that they live in, so that they have the best possible energetic circumstance. And I was thinking about that, about gridding the rooms with essences to create a kind of a high vibrational space. Because we are going to, and I think you and I chatted about that briefly as well, the notion of having these sanctuary spaces that are high vibrational and a frequency match for the kids who are coming in. And they need that with, the soup that we have around us. I used to see, and I still do see, these kind of like a calcite dome over places that stops the Wi-Fi and the other various other stuff that gets beamed at us.
Yeah. This I get so excited when I listen to the stories that you share, and I can relate to so much of it, and it brings up so many different memories, as I'm sure it is for anyone or the people that are watching. But the children, I think the most profound thing that keeps ringing in my ear on repeat is when I communicate with children that haven't yet been born, like my own or other people that I work with. This phrase that they keep saying is you have to create the environment for us not just to survive but to thrive in, and that's never left my brain. It's like we have to create this. They won't come in until they feel safe and in an energetic ecosystem, if you will, that is set up with all these things like essence spread, like all the tools and all the things that people like you who have pioneered for decades have been developing and building. We're really here to to welcome them into a space that is compatible to their frequency, not them trying to fit into a society that's upside down.
Yeah, because that's what's been happening with, people like you, Alicia. You've what you've been through to just to stay here and, to bring your wisdom through. It's like awful.
Can I
Um,
share? Just I'll personally
yes.
share. I was very lucky, as we mentioned, off camera. I was very lucky. I had parents who sort of nurtured, but I was very sick as a child, very, very sick. Um, just not massive things, but I had constant immune issues, let's say. Um, so luckily, my parents started taking me to naturopaths and to have, um, you know, all different types of, acupuncture and oh my goodness, the list goes on and on. um, the homeopathic, like you name it, my parents tried. They really did. They went mainstream. It didn't work. I was always sick, so they sought out alternatives that would really help to help me out because I was incredibly sensitive child and
Mhm.
having all sorts of experiences. And my I'm trying to remember now if it was a naturopath or a homeopath, but my mum took me to this lady when I was about 8 years old, and she did, what she did, and she had me on all sorts of like, tonics, you name it. I was raised on them, like, you know, yes. But what she did was at the end of the session, she said to me, "Now I'm just going to place my hands on your forehead." And she put a tissue over my forehead. She put her hands on, she started doing energy healing. But I was, this was my first introduction to it. She didn't make a big deal about it. She said, "I'm just going to put my hands on your head. It might get a little warm. If it gets too hot, let me know." That's all she said. She did not elaborate whatsoever. That changed my entire life.
Yeah.
I was so taken by what I knew what she was doing. I was so
Mm.
taken by what I was like, oh, I can do that too. So I went home and started running my hands on anyone who would sit still, really. And then I realized that as I scanned my hands across, and it reminded me when you were talking about the kids and they were choosing the
Mhm.
essences, I would run my hands across and I could tell where the imbalances were in their body, where there were illness or, an injury or something like that. So it became a bit of a thing that family members would come over with ailments. And my parents would test me and they go, "Where's Uncle so and so's, you know,
Yeah.
where's he?" And I
Yeah.
would just go, "There." And then I would put my hand on it until as a child, I could feel the hot and cold, and I knew hot meant there was an imbalance or it was
Yeah.
sore. And then I would leave my hand there until the heat went away. And then I'd go,
Mm.
"All done." And the family members would walk away with healed, So what I'm getting at, that was my experience. So from that point on, I was like, "Oh, this is like," and then I went to the school system, of course, and I felt completely, a school system completely did horrible things to me. I'm not, I mean, I wasn't, I just being in the system, I had a very low self-esteem. And then when I came out, I met my first psychic development teacher and at the age of like 16, and I joined that, and then I went, "Oh my God, I'm good at something." And
Yeah.
what I learned through him for the first, 5 years in late teens, early 20s, I was like, why didn't I learn that at school? Because my life would have been
Mm.
so much easier if I'd learned these basic energetic principles.
Yeah.
Um, it's so
Yeah.
important, this, so I guess I just
Yeah.
wanted to share that because it's children know.
Mm.
And if they're not in an environment like, and I just love the way that each step of the way, how you've shared, it's like you ask of them, you empower them because they know exactly what they want, they know exactly what they need, and then just be guided by them. So
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh,
And that engages them in their own healing process. So they're willing participants, which is a
right,
very different situation. And the other thing about the creams, which was very interesting, was that it helped them to keep connecting with the physical body, because one of the things that these sensitive kids, most sensitives, as you know, it's like it's so hard to be here, so you contract your energy as much as possible and move up and out.
Yeah.
So huge challenge for most sensitives is to actually be grounded, to be in completely in the physical body, because it's just too dangerous and too difficult.
Especially the
Um,
starseed sort of origin type children.
yeah,
Yes, I would
yeah,
agree. Sorry, I interject one last funny story, and then we're gonna.
yeah, yeah.
My parents would also take me to a kinesiologist who had his own developed his own modality, and they'd take me there from very young, very often. And I walk in, and he start doing his adjustments, and the first thing, she's ungrounded. We're gonna have to ground her every single session. He'd ground me. I walk out the door. I'd probably pop back out my crown, and So yes, the importance of the connection with the body. So I love the fact that the
Yeah.
creams were a tool for the
Mm,
children
yeah.
to support their
But
grounding.
still very, very difficult, as you know, because the energy is just so sharp and just hostile in many places. So yeah, this notion of finding and creating a place. I've just started this summer, started making some new plant essences. All the majority of my essences up to now have been rocks. Um,
Wow. I was gonna
you know,
ask if
um,
you don't mind sharing. I'm curious, like you don't have to go into great detail, but how does the inspiration come to create an essence? Like, can you share a little bit about when you how it comes about? And because you mentioned before there was like a date that it wanted to be
mm,
created on. I'm curious about the process.
yeah. Yeah, it's an attraction. Something happens. Like I had a piece of pyrite, um, and I was just walking past the shelf one day and it fell off.
Yeah, okay.
And I was like, okay. So it'll be something like that. It's not a matter, generally speaking, it's not a matter of saying, oh yes, I want to make a. What do I have here? Oh, I have. This is a piece of tectonic quartz. It's tiny. You can't really see it.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Um,
yeah.
do I have another piece? I do probably have a huge piece here. Oh yeah, that's a much bigger piece. This was sent to me. Sometimes this happens. See that?
Hmm.
Now, tectonic quartz is quartz that has survived a tectonic shift. So, and grown in the process.
Wow.
So when this guy, I was ordering orgonite from him, and he sent me. He said, "Maybe I think maybe you'd like this."
Hmm.
And when I saw it, it's also called shift quartz. And that was like summer, not last summer, summer before last. He sent me this. And so I went, oh my God, survived a tectonic shift. That's what we're doing. Shift quartz. This has got to be perfect for now. So I made an essence with it. You see? So
Oh,
that's how it happens. Like the rock comes to my attention, or
yeah.
somebody gifts me a rock, or there's
Mm.
something like that. With plants, it's the flower will catch you. It will look at you, and it's very, very strange when it happens first, because it's looking at you no matter where you go. Like you can like, oh, there it is again. Um, so yeah, I made some flowers this summer, and the name that came to me was the Celestine Garden. Do you remember that? I don't know if you ever read those books, the Celestine Prophecy, right?
On my bedside table right now.
Ooh,
And it dropped on the floor because I only read the first, like I've read it a few times, but it
yeah,
came back to me via a dream to tell me to reread
yeah.
it. It's been on my bedside table for a few months. I only read the first few chapters and it did exactly what you said. Like 2 days ago, it slammed it and I was like, oh, that's right. Gotta get back to read.
And it's that, I mean, it's terrible. People say, oh, that God, it's so badly written, that book. I couldn't read it. Actually, yeah, it's badly written, but everything that he says, you can see it happening. You know, the
happening.
fear. As soon as people go into fear, the frequency drops and everything goes to pot. So that it was that scene where he's in the garden and there are these people communing with the plants and you know it's the most and that just came back to me. It's like, yes, it's time for us to really
Mm.
develop that, like these spaces that you're talking about, Alicia, where
Mm.
there is this complete communion
Mm.
between all species, all flora, fauna, and so on, and all elementals too. Um, and that, so yeah, this new series just started, and to me it feels like that's a very positive, because I generally gauge kind of our progress by the kind of essences that are coming in. Yeah.
Yeah, you just answered my my question. I was like, do you see, like, are you inspired by how we're tracking in the, in the collective consciousness climate, I guess.
Yes, as much as you can be when you don't really know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You've frozen again. Oh, you're
Oh,
back.
okay.
Oh, no, what I mean is I'm not quite sure I don't see exactly how it's going to go forward. The um, I know I can imagine a Celestine Garden kind of situation developing. It's another dimension, though, isn't it? It's like
Yeah,
it's another dimension.
yeah, yeah,
And what will happen to this current sort of timeline that I'm in, I don't know. It's so fragmented and um, diseased. I just don't know exactly how it's going to wind out. But I totally see a movement forward for, I don't know how many people exactly, but
mm,
yeah. Um,
yeah. I appreciate you speaking about that because I was going to touch on that a little bit of like that. I feel like we're kind of in it, but how it actually
yeah,
your guess is as good as mine as anyone else. No one really knows, but we can feel it, right? We're in it.
sure.
Yeah.
And I do feel that, when things are pretty shite, I just say to myself, it's not real. None of this is real, actually.
Mm,
Um, and that I do really believe that we have the ability to create our, we create from intention. And the big sort of, I'll tell you a story about, there's a woman called Maciel Smallright, and she wrote these books about her nature research center in America called Perilandra. Um, and she worked with a whole load of garden divas. She was mad about gardens, and she wanted to make a healing garden, right?
oh,
So
yes.
the divas showed her how to create stuff. So from the void, you get the architecture. First of all, you get the geometry and the numbers, and then you hold it and bring it down into form,
Mm-hmm.
which all makes perfect sense to me. So she did that, and she made a muck heap and a garden fork or something like that, because that's what she was into doing. And I've tried to do it a few times, and I realized how very difficult it is to be completely, for me anyway. I mean, probably other people who can do it very well, just to hold that focus and
Mm,
that certainty that this is being created. We are
mm.
creating this. And I do feel that's something we have to focus, really, really focus on. We are creating this,
Yeah,
wherever, on whatever dimension, but we are creating this.
you just gave the perfect example, and through that story, I think you painted a perfect picture. I truly believe that we are in the process of creating it as we're watching
Yeah.
everything completely self-destruct right now.
Mm.
I feel like it's happening simultaneously that there is an what I call our higher or future aspect. There is another reality version of us that is in the process of constructing literally how you describe with the geometry. And it's
Yeah.
like I feel like us here now have a responsibility to connect with that so
Mhm.
that we are active participants in
Yeah,
what
bringing it
we're
into form.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
there we go. My body reacted. So thank you,
Woo!
Anne. um, and to follow on from that, I perfect example. When we came into 2026, I had a very strong message that a lot of the podcasts or interviews that I do hear, they're more conversations, um, that they had to be advocating for the children in all the areas that need to be addressed or highlighted.
Mhm.
And I was just like, I heard the message. I was like, okay, well, I'm open to it, but like, you know, and people like you just miraculously show up. I mean, that's the magic that we can walk into of like
Yes. Yeah.
having an intention or receiving the memo, whichever way it
Mhm.
happens, and just saying yes to it and focus and allow it to kind of show
Yeah.
up in and you know
Yeah.
beautiful souls like yourself and just show up, and
Yeah. Well, that reconnection, I think, there were times like when the Essence program started in uh, the late 90s, there was a lot of synchronicity. There was a forward movement. There were a lot of, like I say, a lot of other essences out there. There was a great flow of information. And that, for various reasons, that got shut down several
mm.
times. And then we had to go through the COVID thing and
Oh.
um,
I was going to say, do you want to
exactly.
speak more to why you believe it was shut down? I mean, obviously, you've watched the trends and the waves of the influx of
Mm,
consciousness and, these different types of, what would be considered alternate, but like essences and different remedies. And then it's really popular and people really benefiting. And then all of a
mm,
sudden,
bang. Yeah. Well, I just think Team Dark are playing a very long game and
mm,
they don't really want to give up. Their time is up. They know it, but they don't want to let go. Um, and they saw the children coming in. They knew that these amazing kids were coming in. That's when they ramped up the vaccine program. And the vaccinations, the kids are so sensitive, they can't take that level of vaccinations. I remember when I was teaching in college and I'd say to people, don't worry, because homeopaths have never, from the very beginning, have never agreed with vaccination. It disconnects you from yourself. Um, it really interferes with the soul connection. Um, and so anyway, I would say don't worry about vaccination. A child is going to die one of these days. A child sadly will die from vaccination, and then they'll stop. Well, huh, we've seen that endless children have died and been maimed by vaccination, and they absolutely have not stopped. So yeah, they saw these kids in these savant kids, I do see there's a difficulty with the terminology around autism. I think I would say these neurodivergent kids are the new human, if you like. They have these extraordinary abilities. Um, and what we now commonly call autistic, I would say they're vaccine damaged neurodivergent kids.
okay, so there is a difference that you've been able to see in your work.
Yes, yeah, because there are high functioning and then the poor, the ones that are coming through on the telepathy types who,
Mm,
you know,
yes,
thank goodness are able to share some of what they've come with.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but they have a terrible time in their physical body, terrible time.
Mm, mm,
Um, so yeah, that the day saw them coming and did everything they could to interfere with them. Then they rolled out social programming, the social media and smartphones and all of that. So they've done a really good job to keep the frequency distortions very high, and
I would agree.
to keep to take kids offline. Kids that I would have seen 30 years ago who were super sensitive
Mm,
have been dumbed down completely and
mm,
taken offline. I see, when I was in my late 20s and studying homeopathy and practicing, I saw a lot of people my own age who were very aware of of energy and how to be with, um, very careful about what they did with their children and so on. And you don't see as much of that now. Um, you know, there's a whole. It's often the grannies who say, look, we've got to do something other than all
Yeah.
the regular medicine here. Um, so yeah, I've seen ebbs and flows, but mostly ebbs, I'd have to say, from the late 90s, the early 2000s. It really started to go down. 2001 was a huge injection of fear into the collective consciousness, um, fear and war energies. Then 2006 there was another. I don't know exactly what they did then, but I don't know. And I don't know if they've looped us. I don't know timeline wise what exactly has gone on, but they've done everything they can to just keep us from moving forward. It's like running up an escalator. That's what it feels like.
Good analogy. Absolutely. Yeah.
Um, but I think everything is combining at the moment to a point where they cannot stop. You know, consciousness is awareness is rising. The, the sun is very busy pumping out all kinds of energies. It's just inevitable that this will move forward, and if
I know.
they just let go gracefully is not in their vocabulary, but I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
just just let it go.
Yeah,
Um,
so perfectly stated. And I do completely agree with you. I feel like we're at a major tipping point now of where it just can't be stopped. I feel like the game is up. We're
mm,
just sort of unraveling now, and things are very much accelerating. And um, the, I guess in my work, I look at the multidimensionality of these children who do come in that are tagged, what I call tagged and tracked and targeted, energetically and then physically. We live in a soup of anything can, shut you
yeah,
down.
yeah,
um, I've been aware of it, and you mentioned something about seeing a little girl who had depression. I thought that was a great case study because I truly believe that depression is literally just disconnected from your own consciousness.
yeah,
You've been
yeah,
shut down for whether
yeah,
it's trauma related, whether it's just too sensitive, can't cope, whatever.
absolutely. Well, if you think about the word, to depress is to push down.
Oh, yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah,
So we're kind of in the decompression, you know,
yes,
the rise up, and I think it's our the role and responsibility of those who've come here in that, like yourself, wonderful, incredible souls through the different, just to help support the re-remembrance,
yeah,
the reawakening, the coming back into that soul remembrance is a
yeah,
powerful force. It is a powerful, powerful force.
yes, yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
and this has just been, I still have more questions, and before we wrap up, I want to know just anything that comes to mind about like the most common things that you've witnessed through your body of work. And I feel like we've only scratched the surface because you and I could talk for days, and we will probably, I welcome any comments and requests because we could probably come back and talk again and deep dive into specific topics. But I have three questions that I still want to cover. And so
Mm,
I'll let you pick and choose. I would love for you to talk about how Indigo Essences name came about and the background behind the indigo and the different types of categories and your take
sure,
on it.
sure.
If you wanted to speak about that, I'd love
Yeah,
you to, I'd also
I'll
love you
do
to
that one
talk.
first.
Yeah, okay, cool, awesome.
Okay, so way back then, I had an email address, acal, because my name is Anne Callahan, acal at indigo.ie, because indigo was an Irish um, host or website or whatever you call those
Oh,
things. So
okay.
it was like at Gmail, it was at indigo.ie.
Oh, okay.
And when I was choosing an email address, as soon as I saw indigo, I was like, whoa, I've always been attracted to the color indigo. I used to endlessly paint watercolor indigo skies when I was a kid. Um, so I had this email address, and people knew me by the email address. At that point, I'd had a computer since 92, actually.
Oh,
Um,
oh.
so so that was one part of it. And at that time, sort of coincidentally, there's a guy called Lee Carroll who started writing
Mm,
about indigo children. No, it wasn't him. Who was, God, it's so long since I've spoken about this. There was this woman who talked about indigo kids. I can't remember her name. Anyway, Lee Carroll wrote about it. Um, and so it began to be a thing, this notion of these super kids coming in, the
mm,
indigo kids. But my take on it was that anybody, I saw it more as not a specific child, but a specific time frame, if you like.
mm,
And I
mm,
saw it as the color in the night sky. One time I was at this Buddhist meditation place, and um, there was a meditation through the night till the dawn. And we were looking out over the Atlantic. It's a place in Ireland, it's beautiful, looking out over the Atlantic. And I remember there staring, you'd be staring at the dark of the night and staring and staring and staring. Suddenly it would start, the light started to come into the blackness.
oh,
And
oh,
and
oh,
that was what I saw.
mm,
It's emotional, actually. That, yeah, it was the lightening up of the darkness, the morning. It was the morning, the coming of the morning of the next day.
mm, mm,
So I saw it as a time frame rather than a specific individual. Now, people were very particular, saying such, oh, this child is an indigo, this child is a crystal, this child is a, rainbow dolphin, whatever. Um, and I think I said to you, I saw that in some cases as a kind of spiritual egotism on the part of the parents. And I used to say, it doesn't matter how you label your child, treat all children as special because they all are.
yeah, very
Um,
much so. Yeah.
so yeah, that was the overarching thing for me. It was a time. The
Mm,
indigo was a time rather than
mm,
specific. And of course, there are differences. What I did see, there were the systems busters type of kids who they were the ones who mostly got ADHD, ADD, the very frantic kind of break things down kind of energy. And then on the other end of the scale, kids that would have been often called crystal were the very, very, very gentle,
mm,
very, very, very soft kids.
mm,
The very, very different kind of energy, very, very soft.
mm.
Super sensitive, all super sensitive, but with the different presentations.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
I
can.
do actually have a series. There are lots of different series of essences in the indigo range. There is a series called the Crystal series, and they were brought in specifically at the request of unborn children to,
Oh,
yeah,
oh, wow. How did
yes,
that
yeah.
happen?
Well, this friend of mine, they were friends of mine actually. Um, this friend of mine was pregnant and her partner wanted her to have a scan. And she had a very strong connection with this baby. And the baby said, I don't want a scan.
Mm,
And it was going to be, as often happens, an area of conflict between the parents.
mm,
So the mum gave in and she said, yes, we're going to have a scan, but this baby wants you to make an essence to protect him while he's
mm,
having the scan because he doesn't want it was almost like he said he didn't want his light body to be damaged. Um, so I had this piece of apophyllite and peach still bite. I'd kept it on my computer as a kind of radiation protection thing. And I just looked at it and I thought, oh, that will do for protecting.
mm,
And it has, apophyllite has got diamond faces. Um, it's a very, very beautiful stone. I don't have a piece of it right here, but it's really light. It's clear like crystal.
Mhm.
Well, the clearer poplite is, but incredibly light, like, just very light compared to the weight of crystal. So, and it has peach stillbite in it, which is a very beautiful, like a soft heart color. Um, Anyhow, so I made that essence and it was called Bubble, and the mum used it. And it's since been an essence that helps a lot for people to be in places where, like people who can't go into the chemical aisle of the grocery shop, where
Oh,
all that kind of
yeah.
stuff. If you get a headache or you get very sick, if you go into a supermarket, yeah, Bubble, very good for that.
Oh,
Um, And then that same child, when he was going to be born, he said he wanted, in essence, to protect him from the pain and suffering that he was going to meet when he was born. So he said he didn't want to close down. He didn't want to lose that level of sensitivity that he came with, but he knew that it would be very difficult. So he had there was a different piece of the same mineral combination, apophyllite and peach stillbite, that I had bought three. I had three pieces of this mineral combination. Each one looked quite different, but they were the same minerals. So that one made an essence called Software, which really should be called Spam Filter, I think.
I love that.
Um, and that is, to filter out the kind of discordant energies that are coming towards them.
Mm.
And then there was a third of that series that was asked for by a little girl who telepathed to the first little boy that she wanted something, and we were she was in Switzerland and he was in my kitchen in Ireland, and she was sending this message, and so we said to the little boy, he said, well, what is she sending? What she's sending? And he said, an egg. She's sending an egg, and I'm going, egg? Well, I don't know. I don't know. Can I make an essence with an egg? Um, but that's what he was picking up. She's sending me an egg. So
Wow.
then I thought, oh yeah, of course she wants a shell.
Yeah.
She wants a shell around her energy body. So that essence was made with a mother of pearl shell, a mother of pearl
Oh.
shell with celestial selenite, selenite is the softest mineral. It's almost water soluble, so it's really light and really soft. So
Mm.
that was the very soft core of her inside a
Yes.
mother of pearl shell, and
Wow.
that was called Smoothie. And that's been used a lot for super sensitive kids
Mm.
kids who can't actually go out because they pick up everything that people see outside. Anyway, that was a long sort of
No,
how
I
did I
love
get
that. And
there
I,
from
I love how you can interweave these incredible stories because that adds the power and the potency and the voice and the advocacy for these children in, educating the adults and parents and custodians and caregivers. These are I guess as we wrap up, just what would you say to parents or caregivers or grandparents or teachers that might be watching this that do have young ones that might be sensitive? Where can they start? Alongside maybe checking out, and I'll put all the details in the description box below of where you can get your essences and have a look at what you offer and incredible work that you do. But what would you recommend to help bring forth these sensitive children, whether they're showing levels of abilities or sensitivities or not? How to change up the approach, I guess, is my question to
okay.
you. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, you need to work through your own fears about how your child will be. Many parents, I would say, you'd see a child who's dreadfully unhappy in school, and I'd say to the parents, you've got to get that child out of school. They just
Mm.
can't deal with that school system. And a lot of parents would be scared to do that because they feel, oh my God, well, what'll happen to my child if they don't go to school? Oh. So that's something you have to address. Um, Fears that you have in yourself about conformity, about what will happen if you don't do what everyone else does. Because these children are different.
They
They're not
are.
the same.
They
So
haven't
that's
come here to sit to conform into the
no,
square box.
no. So they will challenge a parent in every place the parent has what I call a box,
Oh,
a rigid belief.
mhm.
So anywhere you have a rigid belief, your child will challenge you, and that's for you to learn. Um, you must learn how to communicate. There's a great book called How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk
Mm.
by Faber and Masledge, available all over the place. And it's a wonderful workbook on how to communicate with children. And a lot of it is cartoon and cartoons that would make you laugh, but it will help you to realize, like, for instance, my parents' generation particularly, brought up to negate feelings. So a
Oh
child would
yeah.
say, oh, I'm scared, and the mum would say, no, you're not. That's not helpful. Yeah, but it was what the way that we were taught to deal with things that are not comfortable. I hate my granny. No, you don't. you know that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So this book will teach you how to work with that feeling, how to work with difficulties, and etc. etc. It's a wonderful start to communication, and I think all parents should have that before they get pregnant. Um, so learning how to communicate, being being not afraid to be different. I
Mm.
think that's really, really important. And to take the pressure off, you have got to put yourself in the shoes of these children. They're super, super sensitive. So things that you feel are perfectly okay, like you've got to come and let your granny kiss you, or you've got to come and do this and that. And the children are going, no. You've got to, if you're a parent who's never learned anything about energy, well, you know, not saying these children won't come in those circumstances, because I have seen them come in very
Mm.
difficult circumstances, but you really do need to go and start learning the basics of energy so that you can, like brushing the teeth in the morning, you can do the energy work as well. And that needs to be part of every single day.
Yeah, 100% agree. Oh, thank you so much. And that's wonderful. And I echo that energy hygiene and energy education is
Yeah.
something that we didn't grow up with, but it is absolutely imperative for the times that we're moving through, and especially for the young ones that want to come in. Energy
Yeah.
is everything. So
Mhm.
maybe we'll just close. Like it was just flashing in front of me as you were talking. Obviously, we sparked this conversation and connection to talk about where we're heading, and we've touched on that a little bit. And you've talked about these centers and these communities and these hubs. You're not the first person who I've met through my work, and I'm sure you won't be the last person. And part of this is I wanted to thank you for connecting in the way that we did, and also to come and speak and sit down and have this conversation, because I felt something so special emerge after we connected. I could feel this interwoven tapestry of the children orchestrating through the parents and the people who advocate for them, who
Mhm.
can create things to help them, like yourself. I know there's many expectant mothers out there that have been trying for many years or waiting for many years. And what they've shown me is that these children that want to come through are like soul siblings. They have a network that they require of the connection of the adults who are already existing here, who have the skills and the skill set and the abilities. And I felt after we got off the phone, it was like I was living the new reality. I was I was all in this. Oh my goodness. And I thought, no, this is starting now, through
Yeah.
conversations like you and and this will ripple, I know, and people will connect with you and they'll connect with me and we'll stay connected. we're creating this grid, this network, this we're moving it forward. So I just wanted to like thank you so much for sparking something in me, and of course for for being such a pioneer in trying to be the voice and educate for parents and help support these kids that
Well, thank you, Alicia, for helping me to reconnect with this part of my work because, like I was saying, I kind of put it away um, for what are we now, 26? Holy smoke. The last 10 years or more. I've just like put that, put that emphasis to the side.
yeah.
Um, so thank you. I feel
Mm.
like it's a wonderful, it just feels really positive and really hopeful.
Yeah. Yeah, it feels like the light shimmering through for the new reality that we're constructing together, co-creating. So, oh, thank you. Thank you everyone for watching. Thank you, Anne, for your time, your wisdom, your expertise, your light, and just the essence that you bring and the creations that you create and bring to the world that help so many. So once again, please, connect with Anne's work. I will put, all the details in the description box, but I'd love to hear the comments, and I'm sure this is not going to be the last conversation that you and I have. So,
Yeah.
um,
No, I'm delighted to um, interact in any way that brings this whole thing forward.
yeah, perfect. Well, thank you, and bring your comments and questions. We'll have Anne back for round two sometime, and until then, just mwah, sending much love to everyone, and we're doing it. We're building this world. So allow these children, whether they're born or unborn, to help lead the way. Mm.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Bye, everyone. Till next time.